Hey, I'm Nick. I'm a writer here at Ratings.com, where we help people find the best products for their needs. If you've looked at buying an OLED TV, you've no doubt heard of LG's C lineup of OLEDs. Today I'm going to be comparing the 2020 C10 to the very popular C9 from 2019 to see what the major differences are and if it's worth an upgrade. These are among the most popular OLED TVs available and are often the first place people look when they decide they want to upgrade to an OLED set. In this video, I'm going to start by comparing the design of the two TVs, including all the available inputs, before moving on to picture quality. Then I'm going to talk about motion handling, input lag, smart features, and sound. If you'd like to skip straight ahead to our test results, then see the links in the description below. The design of both TVs is identical, and from just looking at them, you'd be hard-pressed to tell the two apart. The silver metal on the back of the C10 is a little bit darker than last year's C9, but other than that, they look the same. They both have the same stand that allows the TV to sit close to the table and isn't too noticeable, though unfortunately it is quite wide, so you'll need a fairly large TV bench, especially if you go with the 65-inch or 77-inch models. Both TVs have very thin bezels, and thanks to the OLED panel, the TVs themselves are incredibly thin on the top and only slightly thicker on the bottom to house all the internals and inputs. Both TVs feel very well built and are made out of a mix of metal and solid plastic. As far as inputs go, again, both TVs are the exact same in this regard, and they have the same inputs positioned in the same spots. This includes a side panel that houses 3 HDMI inputs, one of which supports HDMI ARC, as well as a single USB port. On the back of the TV, you've got one more HDMI port, 2 more USB ports, the tuner cable input, composite in, though you'll need to use the included adapter, Ethernet, digital optical audio out, as well as an analog 3.5mm audio out, so you can plug in a pair of headphones, which is actually a nice inclusion as most premium TVs no longer offer this. It's worth mentioning that while all 4 HDMI ports on both TVs are advertised to support HDMI 2.1, the C10 is reported to limit the bandwidth to 40 gigabits per second instead of the full 48 gigabits per second on the C9. While we don't have an HDMI 2.1 source yet to test this, it means that the C10 is capable of 4K at 120 Hz at 444 10-bit and isn't capable of reaching full 12-bit like the C9. That being said, we don't expect this to make a noticeable difference, especially as there currently aren't any sources that can take full advantage of this anyways. But it's worth considering if you're worried about future-proofing your purchase. The controls on each TV are once again the exact same. Consists of a single button, which is a bit of a shame as it means you need to rely on a different series of long and short presses to turn the TV on/off, change your inputs, or adjust your volume or channel. Again, this is a bit of a pain, so you'll likely want to keep your remote handy. Speaking of remote, as you've probably guessed, both TVs use the same LG Magic Remote, which gives you a ton of control and allows you to easily navigate the TV menus by simply pointing your remote at the screen. Alright, now let's move on to what everyone's probably been waiting for, picture quality. The picture quality of the C9 was already among the best we've ever tested. So was LG able to improve upon that with the C10? Let's take a look at our results to see if there's a noticeable difference between them. For an updated comparison with our new models as we buy and test them, check out our review page on our website, which is linked below. First, let's take a look at contrast. The contrast ratio of a TV is the difference between the darkest dark and the brightest white that a TV can display, and is often considered one of the most important aspects of picture quality. One of the biggest advantages of an OLED panel is its ability to completely turn off each individual pixel, thus creating perfect blacks. Therefore, as is to be expected of any OLED TV, both the C9 and the C10 have an infinite contrast ratio and perfect blacks. They also don't require a local dimming feature, since each pixel is individually lit, so there's no backlight required to light up the TV. One area that OLEDs fall short in comparison to a regular LED backlit LCD screen is in regard to peak brightness. Both the C9 and C10 have decent peak brightness for HDR as well as SDR content. While we measured marginally lower brightness on the C10, the results are within the margin of error, and in real-world usage, they're basically identical. Now let's look at viewing angles. With most LCD screens, the image starts to degrade when you view it from the side. This can be an issue if you watch sports with a large group of people, or if your living room is set up in a way where you aren't facing your TV head-on. OLED panels don't have this issue, and both the C9 and the C10 have excellent viewing angles. We actually measured slightly worse viewing angles on the C10, though again this is within the margin of error and likely won't be noticeable with real-world usage. Both TVs are a great choice if you're worried about viewing angles. The reflection handling of both the C9 and the C10 is outstanding, and they perform the same in this regard. They both have an anti-reflective coating that helps keep glare and reflections to a minimum, even in a very bright room. That being said, since the peak brightness of both TVs is only decent, you may notice some glare if you watch a lot of daytime TV and place the TV opposite a large window. One area where the C10 outperformed the C9 in our test was color accuracy. While the C9's color accuracy was good, the C10 is better and has less noticeable inaccuracies, as well as less of a yellowish tint to pure whites. However, it's worth noting that while we experience more accurate colors with our C10 unit, this may vary from unit to unit and may not be too noticeable to everyone. If you watch a lot of HDR content from streaming services like Netflix or Disney+, or if you play HDR games on your PS4 Pro or Xbox One X, a wide color gamut is very important. Both the C9 and the C10 have near perfect coverage of the DCI P3 color space that's used with most HDR content, though the C10 improves on this very slightly over the C9. Overall though, the difference likely won't be noticeable, and both TVs look outstanding with HDR content. Finally, let's talk about gray uniformity. This is important if you watch a lot of sports, or even with panning shots in movies or TV shows. Poor gray uniformity can result in distracting spots on the screen that are known as the dirty screen effect. Both the C9 and C10 have excellent gray uniformity and perform practically the same. There's very little dirty screen effect in the center, excellent for sports fans, though as is common with OLED TVs, there are some faint vertical and horizontal lines that may be visible in near-dark scenes when watching in a very dark room. The C10 uses LG's newest A9 processor, which, according to LG, uses AI learning for better 4K upscaling. While we don't test upscaling with that much detail, overall we don't expect this to make too much of a difference for most people, and we didn't notice much of a difference in terms of these TVs' upscaling performance. Along with many other TV manufacturers, LG has added a new Filmmaker Picture Mode with their 2020 TV models, including the C10. This helps make movies look more the way the director intended by removing things like excessive motion smoothing, oversaturated colors, and converted frame rates. It's worth noting that most of these changes are still available through different settings options on the C9, and it isn't something that we test for, so we can't speak too much to how well it works. Before we finish talking about picture quality, it's worth mentioning that since both of these TVs use an OLED panel, there is a possibility for permanent image retention or burn-in. While this is unlikely for most people who use their TV to display various moving images, it may be a concern if you tend to watch the same static image all day, every day. For the past couple of years, we've been running an OLED burn-in test on 6 OLED TVs running different types of content. To see the results of that test, check out the video linked up here. Alright, that's it for picture quality. Now let's talk about motion handling. Both TVs have excellent overall motion handling and perform basically identically in this regard. That being said, there are some slight differences, so let's jump in. First, let's take a look at the response time. Like with all OLEDs, both the C9 and the C10 have nearly instantaneous response times. That being said, there is still persistence blur with fast motion due to sample and hold, and with the refresh rate at 120 Hz, motion blur is noticeable in most content. One big difference between the two models is their implementation of their black frame insertion feature. While both have a BFI feature, the C9 can only flicker at 60 Hz, while the C10 can flicker at 120 Hz. This will make a big difference when watching 120 Hz content, as the C9 drops every other frame and the C10 doesn't. Overall, this means that the C10 can reduce persistence blur with both 60 Hz and 120 Hz content, while the C9 can only reduce persistence blur with 60 Hz content. It's worth noting that you can also set the BFI to low or medium on the C10, which will result in similar performance to the C9. Both TVs support HDMI Forum VRR for variable refresh rate, which is great if you do a lot of gaming on your TV. We found this works with both our Xbox One as well as an NVIDIA graphics card for both the C9 as well as the C10, though while the C10 supports FreeSync, the C9 doesn't. It's worth noting that the C10 can accept a 4K at 120 Hz source from HDMI 2.0, while the C9 can't. Because of this, we're actually able to test the VRR range on the C10 up to 120 Hz with a 4K signal, while we're only able to test up to 60 Hz on the C9. For this reason, we list the maximum 4K VRR of the C9 as 60 Hz, though it could be higher. It's also worth noting that we're only able to test this with HDMI 2.0 since there are no HDMI 2.1 sources available as of yet. But we'd expect that both the C9 and C10 are able to accept 4K at 120 Hz when using HDMI 2.1. Now let's look at input lag. If you're a gamer, this can be very important, as high input lag can result in an unresponsive gaming experience. The input lag on both TVs is excellent, and as seems to be the theme of these two TVs, they both perform similarly. Overall, we measured marginally quicker times with the C9, but it's such a small enough difference that it shouldn't be too noticeable. Alright, now let's talk about smart features. Both TVs run LG's WebOS, though the C10 uses version 5.0 and the C9 is running on 4.5. While we noticed a bit of lag with the C9 that resulted in apps hanging for a bit when launching them, we didn't experience this issue with the C10, which is great. Other than that, the layout of WebOS 5.0 is a little different, but both TVs have a huge selection of apps and are easy to use. Finally, let's talk about sound quality. As with most TVs, the built-in speakers on both the C9 and the C10 aren't the best, and you'll likely have a much more enjoyable experience if you go with a dedicated sound system or even a good soundbar. That being said, the C10's built-in speakers actually perform slightly better overall than the C9. The low frequency extension, or LFE, is better on the C10 than the C9, resulting in slightly more bass, though it's still not able to produce nearly the same kind of rumbles or thumps that you'd get with a standalone system with a dedicated subwoofer. Another noticeable difference between the speakers of the two models is distortion. While both TVs have a bit of distortion at high volume, it's worse on the C9. That being said, it's unlikely that this will be too noticeable for most people on either the C9 or the C10 with real-world usage. So there you have it. Overall, the differences between the C9 and the C10 are very minor, and for most people, it probably isn't worth an upgrade if you already own the C9. The biggest differences with the newer C10 are the bandwidth constraints on HDMI 2.1, the newer A9 upscaling processor, and the inclusion of the new Filmmaker Mode. Therefore, for most people, the overall experience will be very similar, and it's likely best to go with whichever model you find available for cheaper. While it's nice to see LG stick with a winning formula, it's a bit of a shame that the 2020 model is so similar to last year's model overall. So that's it. What do you think of the TVs? Have you bought either of them? Let us know what you think below. You can also check out all of the measurements on our website. If you enjoyed this video, like it and subscribe to our channel, or become an insider on our website for access to all of our latest test results first. Also, we're currently hiring in our offices in Montreal for various positions, so if you want to help people find the best products for their needs, have a look at the careers page on our website. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.